Well, I am honored to have my next guest on the show with me here today. At first, when he walked in, I'm like, who invited Paul Rudd to be here? Like, do you get that often?
I've gotten that a lot, actually, a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
When my wife and I first started dating, a lot of her girlfriends called me Paul Rudd, and they didn't know what my name was, so...
Well, he's not Paul Rudd. He's Mark Odlum. But that's a good compliment because, like, people are, like, trying to find Paul Rudd's, like, secret on how he stays so young. So that's a compliment.
I don't know if I've got that part going for me yet. Like, this pandemic is aging me in the wrong direction.
It's aging everybody in the wrong direction. Well, I appreciate you coming down here. We're at Hennessey Studios in the heart of Hollywood. If you look behind me, there was a lot of activity going on because we had all the Emmy Awards.
That's really cool. I saw the giant Oscar over there.
See that?
Like the humongous Statue of Liberty Oscar. Pretty cool.
Yep. No, it's definitely a cool spot. So, well, tell me a little bit more about what is it like to be Mark? First of all, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New England. I grew up in Connecticut, and then in West Hartford, Connecticut, and then I went to school in Rhode Island. In Providence College, and then I went to Boston. That's kind of what you're supposed to do if you go to school in New England. You move to New York or you move to Boston. So I moved to Boston, and I lived there for about 6 years. And I don't know if you want me to get into the comedy and all that stuff with there, or just kind of my places, you know.
Okay, but let's talk a little bit more. So you grew up in Connecticut.
Yes.
Okay. And what was that like? Like what kind of a child were you? I know you got comedy in your life now, but were you always like a little jokester in school or what?
Always. I was always one of those, like, the class clown kind of jokester, love making people laugh. So I was like always a little mischievous, getting in a lot of trouble, but kind of the practical joke kind of humor. Like when I got my diploma in high school, I went up on stage with like a fake hand and shook the principal's hand with a fake hand. And he did not find that funny at all. It was kind of a prop carrot top time kind of humor, but the friends liked it, but he threatened to not give me the diploma, but it worked out in the end. But I was always that, like I would bring a lot of fake blood to school and just those kind of things. I ran for student office to be vice president, and the only reason I ran to be vice president of student council was so that I could give a speech. I didn't really have any agenda or any kind of political aspirations. It was just like, I want to get up and in front of the whole school and make a fake fun. Yeah, make them laugh.
Make them laugh.
So I did. I did,
Nice. Yeah, I was similar to you. I was kind of like a class clown. There's some stories. Like I would go to like my friend's house, right? My friend Billy. And I would steal the entire family's like toothbrushes, just doing random things.
Yes.
I made a photocopy of one of my friend's faces, right? And I kept it in my wallet at all times. And so whenever we would end up at like a party, like there'd be like a picture of the family hanging up in their house, and we don't even know these people. And I would like take the picture down, nobody's looking, and I'd put up like my friend Rob's face as the dad, and I'd hang it back up, right? Just like doing like funny stuff.
That's
man.
what I think childhood is all about. Yeah. Trying to make people laugh. Like we would, my friend Dan and I would, in high school and middle school, would just try to, if there was a very busy hallway with all the students, like I would try to pretend I was running late to class and trip and drop all of my books and papers, and we'd have them extra papers so they would fly everywhere, just so I would fall in front of everyone. So a lot of that kind of stuff.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you had at least you didn't get expelled from the comedy, and you had some good enough grades to go to college.
Yes.
Yeah.
My parents still made me. I still had to hit the books. I was not a great student, but I was I got by, I did my work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's key. I think there was like, I don't even know, like 1,100 kids in my school, and I was like 890 or something.
Yes, yeah. I was around there
I was
too.
having fun.
Yes, exactly.
Right? I was having
Life
fun.
is meant to be fun.
So you went to college. What did you study in college?
Marketing and art. My mom was an elementary school and high school art teacher. So I loved art all growing up. So I wanted to paint. And so I wanted to go to RISD to go to art school, but then my parents were kind of like swayed me to go to more liberal arts. They're like, because maybe you can get a degree to do something else along with art. My mom's like, you can always do art, So I decided to go more liberal arts, and then but with a minor in painting, and I majored in marketing for like advertising.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could always fall back on marketing.
Right, exactly. Not to mention, I feel like any business you do, anything, even if like acting or whatever, you're marketing yourself. Totally. So it's kind of I still remember things from college. I didn't learn so much stuff in college, but I do remember learning quite a few marketing tricks.
I was the same. I studied marketing at UNLV. I went to school. I was in the Air Force, and then I went to college at UNLV. And I was going to be a lawyer, and I'm like, this lawyer stuff isn't really for me. And so I fell back on marketing. Yeah, so it's pretty fascinating.
It is.
So while you were in college, you're pretty tall.
Yeah.
Right? Did you play sports?
I did. I played basketball and baseball. Okay. Those were my two sports. I was very accident prone. I really wanted to play football. My parents were like, not a good idea, because I've broken almost every bone in my body from various sports, and I was, along with being the kind of the class clown kind of guy, I was just a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. I always liked rock climbing, surfing, skiing, skateboarding, and jumping off of cliffs and getting hurt. So they're like, football, no. But I did play basketball. I loved basketball and baseball.
Okay.
And I almost played baseball in college. But then I knew I was not going to the pros. And I was like, I kind of want to have fun in college instead of just playing baseball all the time.
Oh, sure.
Feeling like I got recruited by a couple schools, but I thought I would just be on the bench. Yeah. So I was like, if I'm not going to play, I knew I wasn't going to be starting.
Yeah.
So.
I too was like, I was like an athlete in school. When I was, 7 years old, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. I was into wrestling. I played football. I was, I was an active kid. But believe it or not, like my biggest injury was from a bowling accident.
Oh, of course, because there are always those types of things.
So random, right? So like I'm like 12 years old, right? And my family was really active in bowling. Like I would be on bowling alleys on Wednesday nights with like women smoking cigarettes. It was like crazy, right? And I'm playing video games. And so I would bowl, and I got pretty good at the bowling. And then one time, I'll never forget it, right? Like it was like an empty lane. They were bowling in a league. I'm down at lane 12 or whatever. And I step up there to the lane, right? And I've got my ball. And I guess somebody had like spilled something earlier. And so I didn't know that. And so I get up there and I go and I throw the ball. And as I throw the ball, I slip, right? And the ball comes down and smashes my finger. Right,
oh,
like
boy.
This 10-pound.
Those are those are fairly heavy.
Boom! I remember it like it just like smashing my finger and then bouncing back up. And so, I go and my finger just starts to get big. And so I go get my mom and we go into the bathroom, and like all I remember is I'm like, it's so much pressure. I go like this, and then just blood went all over the bathroom, right? And we go to the guy, and he's like, "Do you need a Band-Aid? Like, what do you need?" But anyway, I still got a scar from that, from a bowling story.
It's
like, go figure.
It's
right?
always that. It's always those.
You remember like an injury that comes to mind from playing sports or what?
Oof, I don't even know where to begin on injuries.
I
have so many, but from from sports and from non-sport. I also have a lot of non-sport related injuries too, like those kind of just wrong place, wrong time. But my worst one was skiing. Okay. I was backcountry skiing in the Swiss Alps when after college, my sister had gotten a job teaching Spanish at an outdoor adventure school in Switzerland because she could go and ski and hike. And so I loved skiing at the time. And so I was like, I'm going to come out and visit you. So I went out to go visit her, and I had a free place to stay in her dorm, and I could ski. And
how cool is that?
It was unbelievable. Yeah. And so I'm in Zermatt, Switzerland, and it was like, we're like halfway through the trip. And she's like, I have to work and all my friends have to work, so you can ski by yourself today. But she's like, just stay on the marked trails. But instead, I was being a little daredevil. I was like skiing on the marked trails all day, and it was like nice, decent snow. But I realized if you go off-piste just a little bit, it was like a foot of fresh powder. So I kept venturing off-piste, out of bounds, a little bit further and further throughout the day.
And are you a competitive skier?
I've been skiing my whole life.
So I just want to kind of put the reference there.
Yeah, so I am skiing now. I kept getting further and further backcountry, off-piste. And this is about 20 years ago. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a GPS tracker or anything. And I'm at about 8,000 feet, and I'm going down a really steep trail, full speed, by myself. And it's about a foot deep of fresh powder, and all of a sudden, full speed, my right ski boot stops, and my body keeps going. And the bone above my ski boot, right below my knee, my tibial plateau, cracks in half and splinters down the long way. And I tumble down like 50 feet. And I'm just sitting there with my leg bent sideways at 8,000 feet with no phone, no one. There's nobody coming there. There's nobody checking those trails because I'm not on a trail.
No.
So I'm like, I'm going to scoot down on my butt. I try to scoot, but my leg is just bone on bone. I can't get down that way. So I'm trying to crawl down on my stomach. That pain just I never went into shock. It was just brutal pain. It never went numb. And so it's starting to get late in the day, and I've figured I'm gonna have to spend the night. So I have to start digging a snow cave.
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah, it is. It's like a survival story. Yeah, it's crazy. So I start building a snow cave to try and survive the night because it gets cloudy and it starts snowing. But then I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I see about 150 yards away on a different trail up around a corner, I see two people skiing by, and I wave my poles down. Yeah. I'm waving them down like a lunatic with my poles. And they ski over, and it's Italian couple. They don't speak any English. And we're trying to talk via charades. I'm like, my leg is broke, you know, and the husband or boyfriend skis down to get help, and the woman stays with me, and we try to talk, and I'm just like nauseous from the pain of my leg. And they get, he comes back an hour later with the sled with the ski patrol, and they have to bring me down 8,000 feet backcountry down to a hospital.
Oh my God.
And then I have to fly back to the United States with a shattered limb for surgery. So
I'm sure you get post-traumatic stress just talking
about
that.
It's crazy. Man. And I did actually write a book about that because I wrote a memoir about that, and it's actually out at publishers right now. It's at like 6 major publishers right now.
So it actually might become a movie.
I may one day. Oh, fingers crossed.
Right?
Fingers crossed. But it's not. But in my tone, it's written in like a self-deprecating tone, and then we switched it from a memoir to a novel so that I could embellish if I wanted to. So now it's a novel loosely based on me, a young adult novel. So
is this something you wrote just during the pandemic?
Yeah, no, I started writing it about 9 years ago after moving to LA from New York, and I was trying to get acting jobs, and I was bartending, and I had 2 different pilots that I wrote, and both of which the ideas got stolen after they won awards at film festivals and made it to different things. And I just got really burnt out. And I was like, I need to write something for me that no one can steal because it is my story and my idea. So I just started writing it, and I was going to write this story for Ski Magazine, like a little short. And then I was I think 100 pages in, I'm like, I haven't even broken my leg yet. I think I'm writing a novel. So it turned out to a book. And then I sent it to a literary agent, and they loved it. And then we've been kind of tinkering it and working on it. And I'd put it down for a couple of years and pick it back up. And then now, 9 years later, it's just going out and
good for you.
Hoping a public. Yeah, so I stuck with it. I wanted to do something for me that didn't have a lot of people giving me notes on it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's your story. I love it.
Yeah.
It's and it's not that's hard to do, to write a book, man, or a memoir. It takes a lot of dedication and commitment because you just kind of get stuck. And it's like, where do I go from here? And you're like, I'll get to it later. And later never comes, right. So.
And it was a dream. I'd always wanted to write a book, and then I wrote another one after. So I love writing. It makes me happy. You know?
It's interesting with the skiing story because so I belong to a group called YPO. It's called Young Professionals Organization. Yeah. And they do really cool events and stuff. And so about 3 months ago, I got to go play poker. And the guest speaker was Molly Bloom. I'm not sure if you know Molly is. She has a movie about her life called Molly's Game. She's like,
right, yeah, of course, I saw that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so she has a very similar skiing story as you.
Yes.
Yeah. She was gonna be a Olympic skier,
right?
And I think her brother even went on to do that, but that kind of changed her whole life,
right?
Yeah. So
as did this, because after that I had to get a metal plate put in my leg. They had to take my hip bone out of my hip, put it into my knee, and I was a very active guy, like I said, basketball and baseball. And then the doctor's like, "You're probably never gonna run again. You're gonna walk with a limp for the rest of your life. You're never gonna ski again." Yeah. And I was like,
all the things you don't want to hear.
That crushed me. When you're 22 years old. And I was like, I love playing pickup basketball. I thought I would play that like my dad did till he was in his 40s or 50s. And,
Well, it's cool that you're able to tell your story. I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, thanks.
So let's go back a little bit. So now you're in Boston.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're living there. You probably have no family or anybody or anything. You're just kind of there on your own. Or
yeah,
what?
my parents are in Connecticut, like an hour and a half away. But my sister was living in Watertown, Mass, at the time.
Okay,
so I could see her on. We'd have Sunday night dinners with she and her husband and stuff. And then I lived with 5 guys I went to college with. So we lived in Brighton, Mass. Yeah,
I'd love to go to your party.
It was a good time.
Night.
It was a good time back then. Yes, yeah.
And so you had this comedy that you've kind of grew up dating back to elementary school and middle school and getting your diploma with a fake hand. So what happened? So you found improv or what?
Yeah, well, it was interesting having, I just feel like where I grew up, I didn't know anyone who was an actor or a comedian. wasn't around that. So I loved watching Saturday Night Live, and that was just like my dream, but I had no idea of like, how did people even get there?
Yeah.
And then I'm living in Boston, and I was working construction, getting up at 4 a.m, working construction. And for Christmas, one year, it was after I had broken my leg, and so I was working construction. I had this beat up leg and everything, and my sister, for a Christmas present, bought me Improv Asylum, which is like one of the biggest clubs in Boston. Improv class, eight classes, level 1 improv as a Christmas present. So I went and started going once a week to take these improv level 1 lessons, and I just fell in love with doing improv. So I did level 1, then I took level 2, and my teacher in level 2 was this guy, Ryan Gall, who was now in the Groundlings and is now on Tracy Morgan's show, The Last OG.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
He plays the husband. And he was moving to LA and was like, hey, you guys should give this guy a shot. He's naturally just stupid, or whatever you want to say. And so I auditioned, and then I found out I made their main stage. And so I went from working construction to all of a sudden they did like 6 to 8 shows a week, kind of like a Broadway show schedule. You had shows every like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 shows on Friday night, 2 shows on Saturday, and rehearsals. And all of a sudden I was like, I guess I'm doing this. So yeah, I mean, wasn't paying enough money. You still had to have a day job, and and I got a job doing. I switched from construction to doing real estate, because I started off doing construction. I was like, I'd work in a full day laboring, and then I was like doing class at 6 p.m., getting home at 9 or 10, and I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I was like, this is
rough life.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, because I've done some improv myself, and to make the main stage, you've got to be pretty good at that. Yeah. I found improv by accident. So I was a radio personality for a little bit. I had all kinds, in our past life, everybody had all these random jobs, construction, and bartending. But I was a radio personality, and I was doing DJing. I was weddings and whatnot. And a friend of mine's like, hey, I'm going to this thing. This was in Vegas. I'm going to this thing. It's called Second City. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, he explained, he's like, you ever watch like Saturday Night Live? I'm like, of course, I love Saturday Night Live. He's like, it's kind of like that. You just kind of go, and we learn techniques and tools, and it's a good group. You should come join. And so I went, and I fell in love with it too. Yeah. And in fact, I actually wrote an article. I'm not sure if it's on Inc. or entrepreneur.com, because I write for some of the magazines. And the article, the whole concept of the article was how improv, like just taking, I wasn't on the main stage or anything like that, but I just took a lot of classes in the games. But how that has helped me throughout life in general, right? From being a good CEO to this, a father, a parent, everything. Yeah.
Well, at Improv Asylum and at Improv Boston, where I went, and I was on their main stage as well. And they were kind of like 2 competing theaters in Boston. And I got to be on both main stages, which was really exciting. But both of them have their touring companies, and they do so much corporate stuff, because they'll go to corporations, and you'll come in and you'll work with your team of salespeople and all that, and just get people to learn how to like think quicker on their feet, and because it helps in sales and business in so many avenues. So a huge part of their business is training
improv,
like corporate
is
stuff.
That right?
Yeah.
I could see that. In fact, I want to go train my team now as I think about this on how to do improv. Like
it's a
hey
great
guys, we got a
tool.
little weird thing that's going to happen here now, but hey, it's fun. It really and it allows you to kind of, because the biggest thing with improv with me is kind of is having trust in your partner that you're on stage with, right? Because
Yes.
they're going to either carry you or let you
Or
die.
bury you. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah, exactly. You need to be able to work together, be on the same page. And yeah.
It's like, I'm going to take you in a weird direction right now.
Yeah.
And let's just see where this
Exactly.
goes.
And you're like, if I
it's
trust you, I'm going with you. We're going down together here. Yeah. So there's a lot of trust. It's all about trust.
Well, that's cool. Well, anyway, we're since I don't know you that well, I figure the best way to get to know each other a little bit better is we're going to do a little icebreaker.
Okay.
And Whitney, whom you know, you've worked together with our producer Whitney.
Yes, I have.
And we're going to talk a little bit about on how that experience was. But so this game is called Never Have I Ever, and I'm sure you've heard that.
I have.
Mm-hmm. I bet you weren't expecting to play it as you walked in today.
Oh, no, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So here's how this works, right? So we both have 10 cards in front of us, and we're going to take turns reading the statements. And you get 1 point if you can answer the question honestly, right? Now, honestly is really, it's an integrity thing.
Yes,
here,
yes.
Right? If you get, let's see here, if you get 7 honest answers first, you're going to be the winner.
Okay.
If I get 7 first, I'm the winner. So since you're my guest, I'll let you flip over the first card and we'll get started.
All right. Oh, so do I read it first and then say, okay,
Yeah.
Done donuts with my car. It's so funny. You know, yeah, in my mom's station wagon, I definitely did donuts. Now, I was just trying to remember. I'm like, I know we took that thing off road once too, but I definitely did donuts in that car. Yes.
With a lot of friends in the car with you.
Yes.
Probably. I love it. Mom, I hope Mom's not listening because she loved that station.
Yeah,
wagon.
it was great. The family wagon.
All right. Told my parents the pot belonged to a friend. So for me, to be honest with you, I experimented with like pot one time and it just made me feel like really crazy. And I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And so I was definitely not the pothead kid of my friends. So you weren't going to find a lot of bags of pot in my room. So that wasn't me. So no, I've never had to tell my parents that the pot belonged to a friend.
Do I answer that one too, or
no?
no?
You
I
don't
get
have
mine.
to answer that
Okay,
one.
all right.
Yep.
Been stuck in a friend zone or friend zone someone? Oh, almost every relationship until I met my wife I was friend zoned. I've always been the nice guy, I was a funny guy.
He's funny.
Girls would like me. I was fun, but like I never had that like. And it hurt me with sales. I was never a closer, and that worked with women as well. So yeah, I was most of my relationships from high school and most of college were friend zone until they started getting more serious and like later in college.
Well, everybody loves that friend, right?
Yeah,
everybody loves that friend. Been broken up for being immature. Been broken up with for being too immature. I could see maybe in like high school, like I'm not sure that was the excuse that they gave me, but to the kid that's stealing toothbrushes from their friends' families and stuff, I can imagine that I was broken up for because I was being a little too mature. So I'll probably go with the yes on that one.
All right. Had toilet water splash on my face while plunging. You know, that's so funny. That I hate that I'm just saying yes on all these, but we're supposed to be honest. And because my parents have this place in Maine, and it is not a very good plumbing. And every time you use it, you got to plunge, and it's not a good quality plunger either. So yeah, it's a splasher.
You know, the worst is when you're standing kind of like in line to use a bathroom and there's nobody, you know, or you're in like a party at a house and it's like college days and you go in and all of a sudden the toilet backs up and you're like, oh my God, what do I do
And
now?
it doesn't make a difference if you plugged it or someone else did. If you're in the bathroom at the time, everyone thinks it was your work. Exactly. So there's no good situation there.
And that, you know what else too? Like when you go into a bathroom and like there's pee on the seat.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's like, even though that you didn't do it, if there's a line there, the person behind you is going to think that that's
it's
your
you.
work.
It's
there,
always
right?
the last person to exit.
Exactly. So I always try to like clean up a little bit here. Yeah. As a courtesy. Thought about what to name my future children. Well, I have 3 children. And so the first one was easy. Like he was just going to have the name Jason. That was just kind of my thing. But the second one, his name's Zach now, but he was baby boy for like 4 days or 3 days.
Because you hadn't made the decision yet?
Because my wife and I could not agree. We're just like,
that happens
I'm
a
like,
lot.
what about Giuseppe? And she's like, Giuseppe? I'm like, what is that? What about this? What about that? And then eventually my wife's like, you know what? Like, what about Zach? Like, she's like, what? Like Zach from Saved by the Bell. And I'm like, I kind of like Zach. And so that was the one that we agreed upon. So,
nice.
Yeah. That's always a scary decision when
it's
two parents
huge,
have to like name their kid.
Right, because you want to be, as a parent, you're always like, well, we want it to be different and creative, but then you're like, but you don't want to embarrass them or make it kind of weird or complicated, and like you're like, they're the ones who are living with this name, so
there's a
there's a fine line there.
Johnny Cash song, Boy Named Sue.
Yes,
the best. Yeah.
Used deodorant instead of bathing. Oh, yeah.
Always.
Yes, regularly.
Today.
Not to mention, you mentioned you have kids. I have kids too. There's so many times when you're like, life is crazy. And my wife and I be like, I haven't showered in like 3 days. And you're like, no. But we go through quite a bit of deodorant in our house.
Is the spray or the roll-on?
Well, you know, it's funny. It worked better when I used the regular. And then someone sent my wife or myself an article about the silver stuff and the antiperspirants and how it's like could be cancer causing, and it's like, it's funny, it's like out of all those things, it's the one thing I did switch to like natural deodorant compared to all of the other things that you see a documentary about hot dogs and yet I still eat hot dog, you know, but that's one of those things that
they
I've gone natural on the deodorant. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have yet. I'm still kind of like, I'm definitely not the Old Spice kind of guy, but I'm more of like the Edge, I guess. I'm not
Which
sure.
Smells
the
a lot
smell
nicer
or
and
something,
longer.
whatever they call it. Brought something on a flight that I knew might get me arrested. So the only time that I ever was a little scared about flying. So back in like we're going to have a guest on the show here in the future. His name's Vegas Dave. And Vegas Dave is a big sports gambler. And he's like a sports savant. And at the beginning of a football season, he's like, hey, why don't you try this gambling with me? So I took like $10,000 that I didn't have. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. And so I turned $10,000 into like $300,000 from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, right?
Oh my God.
In cash, right? And so I'd have my own like safe deposit box at a place called the Suncoast Casino in Vegas. And I felt like a mobster. I'm like 23 years old with like $300,000 sitting in a safe deposit box at a casino, right? And so the story about the getting arrested or kind of being scared to fly is I was flying home because my mom was like a hard worker. She had me at 17. We were poor. So I made a promise that I was going to buy her a Corvette. And so I took $50,000 out of the safe deposit box, and I flew home with $50,000 in cash, right? And that just doesn't seem
Was
normal.
that in your carry-on?
That was like, it wasn't my carry-on. It was like stuffed in $10,000 box. Like literally, like I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? So I'm walking through, and luckily, like, it didn't trigger any alarms or anything. But I knew that if they're like, "Hey, can we just check you, pat you down?" that I was going to be questioned for like being some kind of a drug lord.
Exactly.
Or something, right? So anyway, I flew back home. I ended up buying my mom the car, and it was great. But I was scared because even though I wasn't doing anything illegal, they were.
That feels illegal, though.
Yeah,
I know, even though
did.
it's not. Right. That will. I could. Oof.
Yeah. So that was the one I thought I would maybe get questioned at the airport.
Wow. It's crazy. Had a penis drawn on my forehead while I was sleeping. Well,
I could say I've done that.
I know. I was going to say I've done that in college, but I don't know but I was never like the first to pass out or like, I've always been a light sleeper, even really drunk. And I'm like, even now, like a squirrel farts in the backyard and I'm up, So so yeah, no, that has never happened to me.
That you know of.
That I know
that
of,
you
right,
know of,
right.
There might
I have a
be
lot of friends from
photos.
college
Good thing
that used to happen.
Instagram when we were kids.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or
that
TikTok.
is true.
We might have been pretty famous in our day.
Right.
Yep. Chose not to invest in something that would have made me a fortune. I think the only thing that I did not get into was buying Facebook shares when it first came out, because they did kind of go up a lot. And my uncle was like, "Hey, you should buy it." I'm like, "I don't know. Like, how do they make money and this? It's just like a free platform." So that might have been, or Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
Yep.
We could probably do a whole topic on that. like somebody had mentioned Bitcoin to me for like a long time ago, and I'm like, what? What is this? It's like this fake currency. What?
Yeah,
NFTs
no,
now.
it just
it's like all of this stuff. Like
it didn't sound good on paper.
I don't know what it is. So
right.
how am I going to invest in it? So I'd say Bitcoin. It would definitely be the one for that. Yeah.
There you go. Left a restaurant without paying the tab. No, I've never done that. I waited tables and I bartended for years. So if anything, even if it was the worst service, I would just over tip. I would never, even if I had no money, but I never did that. I never left a restaurant without paying the tab.
No, I don't think I've ever done that either. The only time I've ever done it was I went to go get pizza for the family or something, but I forgot my wallet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am so sorry, man. I'm like, I could go home. What do you want me to do? And he's like, oh, just cook your good, dude. Just bring it back. And he was just nice. And so I just kind of came back.
Nice.
Yeah. Been thrown out of a bar. Yes, but because of my stupid friends. Not because of anything I've done. Yeah.
Yes.
I've had some crazy friends, and you always have that one friend that wants to like pick fights with people.
Always.
Next you know, it's like,
oh yeah,
you're getting into this.
Oh yeah, I had a few of those guys.
Oh yeah.
Been stunned by something that was left for me in a will. No, I was just thinking of a complete lie. I was like, I really don't. I was just trying to. I was going to be like, yeah, this haunted mansion up in the middle. No, but like, no, I wish. I haven't. I think I got my grandfather's pocket knife. I haven't gotten much in a will just yet.
All right. Well, I think that's 7, but let's just continue. So you're officially the winner of our game here, and it always usually works that way. I seem to lose all of these games. Hired a personal trainer because they were hot. No, I don't think I've ever done that. Most of my personal trainers were like big buff dudes that I aspired to kind of look like at some point in my life.
Seen a ghost. I love ghost stories. I believe in ghosts, but no. Well, no. I mean, everyone has those things where you've had some weird stuff happen, staying in an old place, but I haven't heard. I've heard of things, even in my. Yeah, I love ghost stories, but I hate it when they're about me because I know I say them, I'm like, ugh, it freaks me out. It gives me the chills. But I have not seen an actual ghost, but I've heard footsteps in a room I've been in and heard voices, and that's been super creepy where I've been up all night and couldn't go back to bed. But
so for me, my ghost story, I truly believe in ghosts. And I'm very skeptical about everything. Like I have to see, or like I just don't believe a lot of things. But I'll never forget this story. So I'm like 12 years old. I'm upstairs in my friend Hans's house. All right, he's got this house, and the parents and everybody always said that, we've got ghosts in this house. It's like normal, right? We're always like, yeah, we're full of shit, right? But the house, like usually when houses are old, like 1800s, like there's a chance, right? They have stories that they found like a diamond ring. In the backyard and while they were gardening, and they put it on the actual like kitchen table and it was gone. Like things like that. They had all these like stories, and so nobody ever believed them. And so one night, I'll never forget this. It was like an afternoon. I'm laying down in his bedroom on the floor. He's laying down on the bed, and we're doing homework together. And all of a sudden, I hear, "Kutch, kutch, kutch." And I'm like, what the heck is that, right? Kutch, kutch, kutch. And then I look over, and I swear on my grandmother's like life, right? And my grandma was like a mother figure to me. He had this like George Washington piggy bank, right? And it was just literally like shaking in the air. Like I seen it with my own eyes, like it's just shaking in the air, right? And I go to my buddy Hans, I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? I'm like, this like, and he's like, I told you, dude, this house, we've got ghosts, right? And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, and so like, ever since that day, nothing has ever happened like that to me ever before.
Yeah,
but that was the only time that I ever experienced anything kind of like that. It was crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy. All right, your turn.
All right. Used my phone to call someone while taking a shit.
Don't we all do that?
I think so. I think that's one of the perks about having phones, you know? You may call anywhere you need to.
Just don't FaceTime.
Exactly. You just don't flush.
Just don't, or flash. Yeah, you got to kind of make sure. Used a credit card for reasons other than work. Oh, totally. Used a company credit card for other reasons other than work. I never had a boss or anything, so I don't think, if anything, it would have been like my own credit card using it for other things than work. And nowadays I've got like a CFO and an accounting team that like wants to know like, who did I buy Starbucks for and for $13, right? They're so on top of our books. Yeah.
Gone through my partner's Facebook messages. No. I mean, it's so funny. With her, it's such trust, but no, I've never even looked at her phone or text message or any of that stuff.
No reason to do it. Won enough from gambling to pay for my trip? Absolutely. Like I was living the high life.
That's
for a
crazy.
long
The
time.
most I ever made gambling was at Mohegan Sun. I made $175 bucks. And this was like when I was 22, and I felt like I had won $1 million. I was like, drinks on me, guys. Yeah. Bud Lights for everybody.
So my gambling, like I wasn't even the good gambler. Like it was just my buddy was a savant, and I would just follow everything that he does. Yeah. And now he has like mansions in Cabo, and he has like Ferraris and Maserati. I mean, he's just still living that. But the thing is that it was causing friction between my wife and I, because like I would be like out to dinner, right, and I would have like $25,000 on some random Pittsburgh football game or something, and like I couldn't even concentrate on like dinner. I'd be like back in the day, it wasn't as quick as we got now. It'd be like I'd have to push a button and I'd have to wait, and I'm like all of a sudden I'm winning and it's like a 3-point spread, and next thing you know, like a 7 shows up above my team, and I'm like, oh no. And so like it was just causing all kinds of stress with the marriage and everything else. So my wife's like, it's either gambling or it's me, right? And I kind of chose the wife instead of the gambling.
Good for her.
But we were having fun. I mean, we would like go out on shopping sprees with like $10,000.
That's unbelievable.
And it was a crazy life for a little bit, for sure.
And I'm done.
You're done?
I went through all mine.
All right, my last one, I don't know, maybe I had 11. Hired a private investigator, and I don't think I've ever needed to do that. So,
I definitely haven't.
Well, thank you for playing
You
along.
got it. That was fun. That was fun.
You win the game. There's probably some prizes. I don't know, maybe a bag of potato chips on the way out or something. So, I want to talk more about something that a book that you wrote.
Yeah.
Called Clusterfuck.
Yes.
Clusterfuck.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So first of all, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So the little backstory is after I broke my leg skiing in Switzerland when I was 22, I had to be in bed for a month because I couldn't move my leg. And at the time, nowadays you have surgery, they have you bend your leg, the next day you're in PT. Yeah. 20 years ago, they're like, just leave it up and let it atrophy for a month. Don't move it. Yeah. So I was in bed for about 2 weeks after surgery, woke up in the middle of the night with the worst headache I've ever had in my life. And I'd never even had a headache. It felt like my whole life I had never had a headache. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks after this major surgery, it felt like there was an ice pick going into my eye.
Oh my God.
And I was free. I thought I had a brain tumor and was dying. And then it took years. These headaches then I would get 5 or 6 a day for 2 months, and then they'd go away, and I'd go a year, no headache. Then
Were
1 year
you thinking it might
later,
have been traumatic brain injury.
yeah,
from
I
your
didn't know.
accident, or
I didn't
what?
know.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
saw a neurologist. I had to go to the ER. I missed Christmas 1 year because it was so bad. I had to get rushed to the ER for these headaches. And turns out I was diagnosed with cluster headaches, which are considered the most painful condition known to mankind. Cluster headaches. And they are these ice pick headaches that feel like they're going into your eye socket, and they're violent. It's not like sometimes with migraines and other headaches, things that can help you might be being in a dark room, quiet, relaxing you're not sensitive to light with a cluster headache. You're just thrashing on the ground, holding your head and feeling like you're going to die. And you can't even sit still. You're rolling in a ball on the floor. And they're also called suicide headaches. Wow. I'd had them now for almost 20 years. And I've tried every type of medication, and they would put me on verapamil, which is a blood pressure medication, even though I have good blood pressure, to help lessen the severity of these headaches. And that only made it hard to breathe. It would feel like I'm breathing through a straw. And so I had done a bunch of research, and I had been suffering for now at one point for like 16 years with these headaches, and they would destroy my life. Like doing improv, all of a sudden I have a 3-month window where I'm getting 6 of these headaches a day for 3 months straight. I can't do improv at night. I can't perform. It's affecting my acting career, writing career. I can't go to work because you're up all night. Sure. And then you're up all night and you're not sleeping for 2 months at a time. And regular migraine medicine does not work for cluster headaches. So a friend of my wife's, Beth, sent her an article about psilocybin, like magic mushrooms and LSD, to treat cluster headaches. Because cluster headaches, there's no known medical cure.
Sure.
They've tried.
I've never even heard of cluster
Yeah, they're
headaches.
very rare. They affect under 1% of the entire population. It's predominantly men, and it usually comes around age 22. Okay. It's changed since then. I know a lot of women who suffer from them too, but the crazy thing is I would be on these meds and they would make me feel awful, and the verapamil, the blood pressure, and then I'm doing these injections, which are like, they're sumatriptan injections, which feel like morphine pens, which you're like jabbing your leg and you're passing out. And then you have this hangover from the meds, because these headaches will last like an hour and a half. Oh my. And the only other thing that helps is inhaling pure oxygen. So I have an oxygen tank at the house. So long story short, my wife's friend read an article that possible cure for cluster headaches is magic mushrooms, psilocybin from magic mushrooms or LSD.
And are they legal? Or?
No, they're not. No, neither are legal.
Wow.
And they're a Schedule I narcotic. Sure. And
I thought maybe a doctor could prescribe.
No, they can't. They can't. So that's why I decided to write this book about this guy. Again, I turned it more into, it was originally a memoir, then I turned it into a novel about a character like myself who's got the most painful condition known to mankind, yet there's no real cure for it and no real medicine that works aside from a Schedule I narcotic. So you're like, suicide headaches, or do
Possibly
I go to jail for going to get LSD and mushrooms and trying to get a lot of it? Sure. So it is an actual clusterfuck of trying, because it's also, once you get older, you don't have as many friends that are going to fish shows that can get you a bag of mushrooms. It's like harder to be like, where do I get mushrooms? Where do I get LSD? What you've just done, to those that are listening that love those kind of drugs, like you just gave everybody a cluster headache here. Is what you've done. Exactly. I love it. See? So it's funny, being a guy who never really did drugs. I always liked beer and stuff, but I smoked pot a couple of times in my life, but I was never a big drug guy, and I'd never done mushrooms, never done LSD until I was like 40 years old. Okay. I tried mushrooms. I'm tripping with a kid, with a baby and another one. And I'm tripping for the first time. It would be like, all right, Dad's going to dose today. So like I would go in our office and my wife would have the 2 girls. I remember it was before Easter and they're making Easter eggs in the kitchen and I'm tripping on LSD. And
now you would only do it when you had the headaches?
No. Okay. So there's a whole thing where people have been like, if you just eat a handful, but the thing is, it doesn't work that way. You have to do it. There's like an actual scientific way. There's real science behind it. Right? So I had to get a gram scale and I measure out, and I have very organized because I went to a headache conference in Austin, Texas, where these world-renowned neurologists and people were talking all about psilocybin and the benefits. I mean, it's helping people with depression, and it's getting legalized right now in certain states,
so
like Colorado.
They
knew,
here, yeah.
but the problem with psilocybin is, like, in the 60s, they were studying at Harvard, and then it kind of like turned into like LSD orgy parties and stuff with students, and it was like, okay, we're stopping all research on this stuff, which sucks because there's a lot of good they can do. So, but now after 20 something or 30 years, they're starting to do a lot of research again. They're finding so much good that comes out of psilocybin.
Yeah.
And one major one. So the way I treat it is, like, if I have all of a sudden I have a headache, I can't just go eat a bunch of mushrooms. It's when they go into their remission period, that's when I start taking mushrooms. So it's like every 3 months I need to eat mushrooms, a small dose. I don't have to go, go to Banana Town Junction here. I can just do like a small amount where I feel like I've had like 6 glasses of wine or something.
Sure.
And colors get pretty vibrant, but I will every 3 months just eat mushrooms as a deterrent. It's like almost taking a multivitamin. It keeps the headaches at bay. So having gotten them every year for every year for 17 years, all of a sudden I started doing this mushrooms. I went 3.5 years without a headache for the first time in 17 years. And I was like, okay, there's some real stuff to it.
For you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hate it. I'll be honest. I don't like, so that's why I want more people to do more science to get the psilocybin, so I don't have to trip when I have my kids in the other room and I'm hiding watching old movies.
Extract what is in that.
Exactly.
That helps,
like
right?
they've done with CBD and taking the THC out. I'm hoping they can find,
a way to do that.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple years since you've had one of the cluster headaches, or what?
Yes.
So it's working.
It is still working. I still have to do it. It's, there are worse things. I was on a cocktail of awful meds I was taking prednisone for years and these injections, and it was making me feel awful, to taking something that's like natural and actually is kind of a good time.
It's work.
Yeah. And I get a free day and I can watch like superhero movies because my wife likes period piece movies and I like superhero movies. So those are the times I get to watch all my movies.
And write Led Zeppelin songs.
Exactly. Exactly. I got to start writing music. I'm an awful singer, but it's a good tip. I got to start doing that.
Exactly. Right. I gotta imagine that Bohemian Rhapsody was written with something, There's no way, right, that you could just come up with a song like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Oh, a lot of those. Some of those Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, and a couple of Beatles albums were completely under the influence of some.
So the book, Clusterfuck, is it out?
No, not out yet. Okay. I wrote it. That is actually being rewritten right now, and then they're bringing it back out because, I had done a change on it and thought it would be cool to bring the character down to like a young adult thing. And I think we just, it was all of a sudden the epiphany that, we're selling a pro drug book for kids. Maybe we should skew it a little older, but it was also, I wrote it a few years ago, or the beginning of it. I'm still working on it now, but now that things have changed and people have really found all of the benefits of psilocybin. So I'm in the process of rewriting it right now. And then we're going to take it out to publishers soon.
Well, the thing about it is there's probably like people that get these headaches that have never heard of this cluster term, right? And they just think that they get migraines.
Right, and a lot of people get these headaches, and the pain is so intense and it disrupts your life so much that a lot of people will take their own lives because there is no real medicine. So if you could do something, it's like, there is something there that is not bad for you and will work.
Well, so I can see it being very popular, because that's something that the press probably wants to talk about. You got migraines? Maybe it's not a migraine. Maybe it's a cluster headache. Here's a great book. And I can see you going on a whole book tour.
Right, exactly. Right? Yeah. So there's a lot, and having those things. So that's why I wanted to write a book showing it, but also wanted to write a humorous way of this guy is trying to get these mushrooms, obviously gets arrested in the book at one point, and he's dealing with these. And I made it where the headaches, instead of just describing these awful headaches every time he gets one, I'd made the headaches into a character that tortures him, because it feels like you're being tortured by a sinister beast. So I was like, let's make that a character that they talk to, and the guy beats him up. So it's a little Fight Clubby. So
now, is there like a group? Is there like people that that also get these cluster
headaches? There's this organization called Clusterbusters, which I found through that same friend who had sent that article to my wife, and they did the headache conference in Austin, Texas, and it's like a wealth of resources, because the problem is even neurologists, there's so many doctors that just don't know anything about cluster headaches, because it's kind of a rare neurological disease that they don't know a lot of people, they don't know a ton about. So they don't put a lot of money and effort into it. There's a lot of money and research towards migraines and meds for migraines, but not for cluster headaches, because not as many people suffer from them. So Clusterbusters has helped raise a lot of awareness and help people get the resources of like finding out how I have an oxygen tank in our closet that when I have them, I huff pure oxygen.
Is that right?
Yeah. Which freaks me out with the kids.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, don't knock that over. Is that going to like turn into a missile and shoot through the roof? Yeah, you know, and I'm like, and I'm always worried my wife is going to light like a scented candle or incense in the house. I'm like, we have a huge 4-foot tall oxygen tank in there. There's no more incense in the bedroom.
So you mentioned your wife, your kids.
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
Been married since, I'm so, what is it? 2013. So yeah, I think we have our 8-year coming up.
Is that right?
It's 7-year. I'm awful with it.
It's okay. She's not here, and she probably won't even listen to this.
Yeah, right. It's true.
My wife never listens to any
No,
of my
right. There
stuff,
you go.
right?
You're right. I got that going for me.
And so you have children?
Yeah, I've got 2 girls.
Okay.
And they're 3 and 6 right now.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and yeah, my wife, she's an actress, and we met at a film festival in New York years ago. We met in the press line. We both had pilots in this independent film festival that we both won, and like we both won awards, and we met in the press line, and we were both in other relationships. And I just met her as a friend, and she was like a writer, creator. And I just remember she's really cool. And then it was like, and then I was, single, and she was single, and I had always had this secret crush on her for years after meeting her.
You're in the friend zone.
Yeah, exactly. And we were, she lived in LA, I was in New York, but we were friends on Facebook. But like, it was one of those crushes that I wouldn't even go on her Facebook page, because I would see her pictures and be like, that's the person I want to be with. She's got freckles and beachy hair, and I've always had a thing for freckles, and like, so yeah. And then just,
got the courage.
Yeah, it was funny. I had been out in LA, and I was on the phone with my sister, and I was like single, and I was doing improv, and I was doing the UCB, and my sister's like, you gonna start dating? I'm like, no. I had gotten out of a long relationship. All I'm doing is focusing on my career. That's it. She's like, nobody? I'm like, well, obviously that girl, Regina, I met like 5 years ago. I would date her or marry her in a heartbeat. And she's like, why don't you call her? I'm like, she lives with her boyfriend. She's like, call her. She's a writer. See if she wants to get a cup of coffee and talk. You're new to LA and talk about writing.
So your sister helped.
Yeah. So I called her or emailed her, and she was like, I'd love to meet up. I'm just not in a good place. My boyfriend and I of 8 years recently broke up. And I was like, yes, yes. We had like a 3-hour coffee in Venice Beach, and then we tried to slow things down, but that train was moving fast, and it was very like, she was just meant to be. Yeah, I got a great family, 2 little girls, and
are your girls jokesters too, or what?
The little one really is. The
she?
3-year-old is bananas. She's
right?
hilarious, and yes, always doing jokes.
Same with my daughter today. Yeah. So she just turned 5 years old, and so kids these days watch a lot of YouTube. We don't give her too much of the screen time, but she watches like full TV shows that are produced by parents. Like it's like craziest thing.
Right. I know what those things. Yeah.
And so she's like, it's like the Ninja Kids and this and all these like different shows that she watches. And so I want to say that she gets her jokes. I can't imagine like this 4-year-old coming up with these concepts.
Right.
So like one day, like I'm sitting in my office and she brings me an Oreo cookie, right? And I'm like, oh, thank you. And I'm working. I'm like, thanks, honey, and get the Oreo cookie. And I go to take a bite out of it. And I knew what was up. Like, there's something off with this cookie, right? It looks like an Oreo cookie, but it smells like my toothpaste. And I'm like, what is going on here, right? So if any one of my friends would have brought me the cookie, I would have took it, threw it at them, get it out of here, right? But for this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with this now. So I'm like, thank you, honey. And she's kind of giggling, and I'm just like, this is awesome. I love Oreos. How did you know I was hungry? And I took a bite knowing that I was going to regret the chocolate and the tooth Colgate or whatever the heck one she is, right? And then I bit it, and I was like, oh, my God, this is the worst. Like, completely over dramatic. Yeah. And she's cracking up, but she does this. She's got like these
love that.
jokester personality.
I love it. I love it.
It's fun to see that.
It definitely is.
So you mentioned you called it UCB.
Yes.
So what is UCB?
Upright Citizens Brigade. Okay. They're an improv theater in LA and New York. Yep. Okay. And it's funny because I had done Improv Asylum, ImprovBoston in Boston. Then I went to New York and I worked at the People's Improv Theater, the Pit.
Yeah.
And I'd done classes at UCB.
Okay.
And then I moved out to LA and I started doing class. It's the one, Amy Poehler. She was one of the founders.
Okay.
She's one of the founders of that theater. And so I had been doing. The thing about UCB is before you can even audition for them, you have to take so many of their levels. And it's just one of those things that I had taken levels like 1 through 3 or something in New York. And I moved to LA and I was like, I want to take level 4. They're like, it's been too long. So you got to start at level 1 again. So I had to start at level 1, 2. And then, but I was about to do the next level and then audition for them. And I booked a pilot of a TV show, and then I shot for like 2 months. So, and then I never went back, and then so I never finished my improv. I officially retired a few years ago. Yeah, okay. But I miss it. I loved improv, but yeah, I haven't done any in a
So it's funny you mentioned Amy Poehler because I think that's the connection with Whitney, our producer. You guys ended up so. First of all, before I get there, so what's this woodworking thing? What is that?
Oh yeah, you're right. There's another thing. Yeah,
so it's like you've got all these different
I do have I'm jack of all trades, master of none, whatever you want to call it. But my grandfather was a master carpenter. Okay. So I, as a kid, would apprentice him in his workshop, and he built like beautiful, fine furniture, mahogany, Americana, old, antique-looking furniture, and I would apprentice him. And he had this unbelievable workshop, and it would be my favorite thing to go and just spend the day with him in the workshop. And I could sweep up all the sawdust, and I learned to chisel, and we would whittle and make little guys. And
he had all 5 fingers still.
Yeah, right? Exactly. His brother-in-law did not. He was a woodworker too, missing a thumb, and I was always fascinated by that because now they have guards on the table saws. That was a table saw. Yeah. So I just found a love of woodworking, and then after college, my uncle is a contractor. So I was working on building buildings and stuff. So I always, when I got into acting, I was always doing some sort of woodworking or carpentry to pay the bills until that interfered with your day because you want your days free as an actor to audition. Sure. So then I started bartending at night. But then, with acting and writing those books, it's like, you're writing sometimes for 9 years for free. They're passion projects. Right. It's in your pipeline knowing that someday that will pay you off. Yep. But you have to I would write when my daughter's napping, write at night. But while I'm waiting in between acting gigs, I started doing more and more carpentry out in LA, and I started building custom furniture, and I was making a lot of people I would see something I built. And then people would, for word of mouth, I want one of those. Can you build that? And then I started doing a lot. I had my own company building custom furniture. And then I had a thing where I was working with a partner and we were building decks and we were doing remodeling houses together. So I did that for a few years in LA.
Got it. And that was like a passion that you were making money with.
Yeah, it was a passion. Cool. Yeah, exactly. And I love building stuff. So it ended up just really working out. And then I got featured in some magazines. I built this play kitchen and it was in Domino magazine. Okay. So things just started opening up with more and more with the woodworking and building furniture. And then a friend of my wife's called her and was like, your husband's a carpenter. I'm working on this show, Making It, with Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman, and your husband's really handy and can build and paint and do a lot of things, but you ever want to be on the show as one of the these, like we call the helpers, the master helpers who would help the contestants build some of their projects. So I did season 1 and it was like they put together this unbelievable team of these carpenters. People are like unbelievable artists and woodworkers that were the helpers. And Jimmy DiResto was running the shop, and it was like, I loved working on it. And that's how I met Whitney and then Amy and Nick. And it was just such a fun show of people building. And I feel like they tried really hard on that show to get people to all get along and not have it be one of these like catty reality shows where people are backstabbing each other. They just wanted it to be where people are making things and enjoying the passion of making things. And I think they succeeded. And
that's cool because first of all, for them, like thinking about like casting, how do we find like a carpenter that has a SAG card? You know
right, exactly. Like those things. Second, and now it's so funny how these worlds have now all of a sudden, being a SAG SAG thing, like I just booked a Lowe's commercial and I filmed a Lowe's commercial last week. And in the audition, they're like, we don't want actors. We want real professional carpenters. And I was like, what's your experience? And I was like, and I teach woodworking classes at Allied Wood Shop in LA. And I was a master helper on
That was never
on
how
making
any of
it.
your auditions ever
No,
went, right?
no, exactly. It's just kind of crazy how things just all of a sudden. And then I shot a woodworking pilot. I've shot 2 pilots for HGTV now, to host. So it's crazy how those worlds have collided lately.
So what are you doing now? Like what keeps you busy these days?
Every day it varies. So I thought I had retired from acting because in my commercials, there was at one point I had been on a veil, which means like second place on 150 different national commercials over a period of time that I did not book. So I came in second place 150 times out of hundreds of people, and it was destroying me. And then it got to be this whole weird thing where I was like, I am incapable of booking a commercial, but I'm always going to come in second place. So I would still get these auditions. And I was finally like, I think I'm done. I'm going to focus my energy more on writing, more on woodworking. And when I did that, the things like Making It happened. I just shot another TV show for woodworking. And it's funny, I made up in my mind I was retiring from acting because I'm sick of coming in second place and all of the drama of almost booking things. Yep. And then I had this audition for the show Insecure, and I had retired the day before in my mind. And I go in and I did not care at all. And I booked it. And then I had an audition the next week for the show Adam Ruins Everything. And again, I was like, I'm done with acting. This is a waste of my time. We don't have the good childcare. I can't even be here. Yeah. And I didn't care about the audition. And I booked it. So it took me like 20 years that now I can walk into an audition of not caring. It's the place you want to be as an actor.
That's exactly right.
And I didn't realize that you have to do it for 20 years and be ready to retire and give it up. Yep. It was when you can finally be in the position to act how you want to in the room, where you're comfortable in your own skin.
That's right. That's what they say. My son's an actor too, and that's what they say. You're not really acting. Just kind of just go in there and be yourself.
Exactly. Don't overthink it.
Because you can tell when you're trying to try too hard.
You can, and it comes across, especially when they're watching on the camera. It's so obvious if you're trying to, or you want it so bad. Like years ago, I auditioned for The Daily Show. I wanted that so bad because I was like, I'd be perfect as one of the fake news reporters, and I bombed because I was putting on a persona that I wasn't myself at all. It's like the one thing I wish I could have gone back years ago, but it's one of those things.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming down. I enjoyed getting to know you during this past hour plus. What we like to do is sometimes maybe go out and do like some filming maybe afterwards. It'd be great to kind of go out and maybe just in case I ever get a cluster headache, maybe come out and you can give me the remedy.
Absolutely.
You never know.
We'll do it together. Right? We'll do a preemptive dose together.
We'll write some music and all kinds of stuff.
There we
together,
go.
Man.
Make magic.
Right?
Yes.
And for those that are looking for custom furniture, first of all, Clusterfuck is coming out hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon, but hopefully first is the book about the ski story, which is the preemptive called No Whiskey, No Dog.
Okay, got it.
And that is out right now with publishers.
It is? Okay, good.
Waiting hopefully any day to find out who and when and where. So,
Good. And how can people find you on social media?
Social media, yep. I'm on Instagram at I have my website, markodlum.com, but then on,
and spell it.
Yeah. markodlum.com. It's MarkOdlum.
Not Odlum.
Not Odlum.
Okay.
Odlum, which no one ever gets right. No one ever gets that right. And I'm on Instagram.
Awesome.
I can't remember. I think it's...
They'll find you.
Yeah, they'll find me. It's like M. Odlum or something. Like Mark Odlum Woodworking on
I had
Instagram.
to go out and buy my name from some guy that had Jason Hennessey because I didn't want to have the confusion. So I ended up acquiring my name from somebody on the aftermarket, but they'll find you.
Nice.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we'll have to do this again soon.
You got it. Thank you so much. This was fun.